time to open our eyes to a bright and promising future. We'll rise to the call of the times and create a stronger tomorrow. Let's start to make a difference, teaching everyone to learn through science, health, and technology. We will share our expertise by promoting knowledge and policies. We can build a better world. Let us take a step for our visions alone, bringing future plans for the people to grow in a life filled with happiness and grace. Hear us sing building the future is our legacy. We'll achieve our goals through partnership, creating opportunities by working hand in hand together. Accomplish all our dreams for a better quality of life. There's more within our reach. Let us take a step for our visions alone, bringing future plans for the people to grow in a life filled with happiness and grace. Hear us sing building the future is our legacy. Let us take a step for our visions alone, bringing future plans for the people to grow in a life filled with happiness and grace. Hear us sing building the future is our legacy. Building the future is our
Assalamualaikum and salam on behalf of the organizer, Simeo Regional Center for Special Educational Needs, SEN, I would like to welcome everyone to our webinar, Closing the Educational Gap for Persons with Disabilities. We would like to also welcome teachers, parents, and school administrators from all over the Southeast Asia region and beyond. As you might be tuning to us from various time zones, allow me to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We would like to also express our sincere thanks to everyone for being with us today. This webinar is expected to run for about 2 hours. We hope you will stay tuned with us until the end of the webinar. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Ikram bin Abdul Aziz, and I will be the MC for today's webinar. Yang berbahagia Datuk, Professor, Doctor, ladies and gentlemen, for everyone's information, this webinar was proposed and intended to be a sharing platform of best practices from across the region, focusing on overcoming challenges in continuing education for persons with disabilities. Taking into consideration countries which are still under pandemic lockdown and countries under recovery period, this webinar is expected to share valuable insights on action and measures taken on the continuation of education. Before we go any further, allow me to share some notes as a reminder for all participants. We hope all participants will tune in from the start until the end of the webinar to avoid missing out on important sharing and announcements. Kindly refrain from using the chat box and comment section for conversation with other listeners. Instead, you may address questions to the speakers. Please avoid using simplified words in your notes so that the webinar secretariat and others may understand you better. If you are having sound or video issues, you may try the alternative live channel links such as our YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and Twitch TV. Links are available in the description section below the screen. E-certificate shall be issued to participants upon your registration and completion of the webinar evaluation. Registration link will be activated at the end of the webinar. Announcement will be made. Please complete both registration and evaluation within 3 hours after the announcements or before 3:30 p.m. Malaysia time. If you need further assistance, you may reach us through our email webinar@simyosen.org. Yang berbahagia Datuk, Profesor, Doctor, ladies and gentlemen, moving with the webinar agenda, we are proud to have with us here today 3 distinguished speakers. The webinar will start with the opening remark from Datin Era Zafura Maxine, the Head of Management Division, Simyosen, followed by the first plenary speakers, Dr. Jupiter Lopez Petila, Principal, Magatan Integrated School Center, Philippines. Next, we will hear from Mr. Wong Yong Loong, Manager at Center for Advocacy, Research and Empowerment for the Blind, National Council for the Blind Malaysia. And our final speaker for today is Dr. Samad Ratana Sakon, Senior Academic Officer, Special Education Bureau, Ministry of Education, Thailand. Without further ado, allow me to introduce our moderator today for today's webinar. Madam Monisha Maksha is our Head of Training and Consultation Division, Senior Regional Center for Special Educational Needs, Simyosen. With special education close to her heart, we are honored to have Madam Monisha moderating our webinar today. May I now invite Madam Monisha to take over in moderating the session.
Thank you, Mr. Ikram. Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our respective listeners from the Southeast Asia and beyond. On behalf of Simyosen, I would like to extend our warmest welcome and thank you for tuning to our live webinar. Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm Monisha Maksha, Head of the Training and Consultation Division, Simyo Regional Center for Special Educational Needs, or Simyosen. It is a great pleasure for me to be able to moderate for today's webinar, Closing the Educational Gap for Persons with Disabilities. Personally, today is a blessing and a proud moment for me to be able to virtually be together with 3 respected speakers in the education sphere. Ladies and gentlemen, for everyone's information, this webinar is one of Simyosen activities under our online capacity building series, which aims to be a reliable learning platform and resources for special education teachers. Compared to the face-to-face learning, our OCBS goal is to provide greater learning accessibility to teachers and educators, especially during these challenging times of COVID-19 pandemic, where teachers are unable to attend face-to-face training due to the movement restrictions. Today's webinar has brought together speakers from 3 countries to share and discuss issues pertaining learning environment during and post-pandemic situation, as well as the sharing initiative and effort taken in addressing education to assist learners with special needs. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on to the next item in our agenda, which is the opening remarks by Datin Era Zafura Maxine, the Head of Management Division of Simyo Regional Center for Special Educational Needs. It is my great honor to invite Datin Era Zafura to deliver the opening remarks. Datin Era, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Monisha. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. USAN Webinar Organizing Committee and to all participants from senior member countries and beyond. It is indeed an honor for me to be with everyone here today. It's also a great pleasure to me to welcome you on behalf of Senior SAN to this webinar, Closing the Educational Gap for Persons with Disabilities. Also, allow me to congratulate each one of you today for your hard work and dedication to be here, although virtually, to lift up the quality of education for our beloved children of the nation. It's not easy. I know most of you have a busy schedule with works and amidst the outbreak situation that we are currently facing right now. Still, all of you managed to come here to share and gain knowledge for the benefit of our children. As you already know, it is ingrained in senior SAN's rules that are to promote teachers' capacity building, increasing awareness, as well as fostering collaborative efforts among countries, institutions, and non-profit organizations for the benefit of special education community. The whole world situation has put us in limits to our previous practice. Nevertheless, we hope this approach our desire to continually lift the capacity of SPEC teachers in the region will keep going. We always try to find means and ways to make sure that our capacity building programs will continue to run in one way or another. We also very much blessed with the support given by our speakers for this morning, Dr. Samad Ratasanakon from Thailand, Dr. Jupiter Lopez Petila from Philippines, and Mr. Wong Yun Long from Malaysia to share their insight on their particular issues. As we know, the world is changing rapidly right now. On top of this whole new approach in education, in this new normal, it is important for us to take stock and plan our ways to close the gap in our delivery so that it will bring more fruitful impact our beloved children. So much so, objective of this webinar include to discuss and share learning situation and respond to post-pandemic situation. To discuss and share initiatives and effort taken to address education disruption during crucial times, and to share on how educators prepare for educator in disruption in the future. Living in multicultural and diverse region, I think we have an advantage to explore different ways and approach in our region. So here, with this webinar, Simulation hope to bring one of the best practices that we have identified so far and to be a sharing of information platform so that you can take back what is good to adapt in your local education setting. I hope by the end of this seminar, a similar sharing session could be done in smaller scale so that we will be able to achieve this objective eventually. Without further ado, I would like to wish you an enjoyable and productive webinar ahead. Please do chip in your thoughts and questions should you have one in the comments or chat box below so that all of us will be able to learn and understand more about this topic. And should you have any ideas or comments on this seminar, you also may let us know in details and we will be more than happy to make this webinar session a better platform for all of us. I hope that this webinar will bring fruitful insight and knowledge for the teachers and other professionals for the special education in your country and thus indirectly to the disability students themselves, for whom this is ultimately all intended. We benefit from the outcomes of this training course. Thank you so much for your time and attention once again and have a good day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Nera, for the opening remarks, a very valuable reminders. Now, let us hear the initiatives and effort done by our first speaker in ensuring the learning continues for learners with disabilities. May I remind all speakers that you are given 30 minutes for your presentation. May I introduce our first plenary speaker for today. Dr. Jupiter Lopez Patella is currently a principal for Mangaldan Integrated School, SPED Center, Philippines. Dr. Jupiter holds a master's degree in education and a doctoral of education degree from Baguio Central University, Philippines, specializing in administration and supervision. Prior to his excellence in his service, Dr. Jupiter was awarded a 2018 Civil Service Commission HEP Honor Awards Program Dangal Eng Bayan National Finalist and Region 1 winner, and the most outstanding principals in the Philippines given by PESPA, Philippine Elementary School Principal Association in 2019. I would like now to invite Dr. Jupiter to share on the Philippines' approaches and response in learning situation for learners with disabilities during and post-pandemic situation, as well as how educators could prepare for education disruption in the future. Dr. Jupiter, the floor is yours. Dr. Jupiter, please unmute.
Terima kasih. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. A pleasant morning to everyone. Yours truly is Jupiter Lopez Pitilla, the principal of the Mangaldan Integrated School, Special Education Center, Department of Education, Region 1, Schools Division Office of Pangasinan 2, Philippines. Today, I am tasked to facilitate the first session of the SimioSense International webinar that focuses on the closing the educational gap for persons with disabilities. And my topic is entitled Education of Students with LD or Learning Disabilities in the midst and post COVID-19 pandemic. This slot, ladies and gentlemen, is particularly aimed to address important concerns of parents, guardians, and caregivers in providing appropriate and relevant educational interventions in this worldwide health crisis, as well as to share the Philippine perspective of the new normal education. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now in the 11th month. It is November, nearing the home stretch. But it seems we have been through a very long journey of trials, sacrifices, and uncertainties. And the current year of 2020 will then be remembered and will go down the history as the period in our lifetime when a dreaded disease called COVID-19 has practically spread all over the world to change the way we traverse our daily lives and forever modified the way we deal with our fellow men, the way we socialize with our friends, and even with our loved ones. The unprecedented imposition of community lockdowns, quarantine measures, border closures, including the implementation of curfew hours, have brought tremendous effects that created massive challenges, specifically on the healthcare system, where it overwhelmed hospitals and medical institutions due to continuing rise of positive COVID-19 cases. Likewise, to the economy, because the extended lockdowns have shut down many manufacturing industries, commerce, trades. There were big business losses that triggered retrenchment and unemployment. In this pandemic, economy is down. COVID-19 has also affected the social milieu due to the physical distancing measures. We all have experienced travel restrictions. There were closure of hotels, restaurants, resorts, and that even mass gatherings of people for social, cultural, religious, and even sporting events have to be stopped because there is only one order, that is to stay home. And one of the most important or affected sectors in the society is education. The abrupt cancellation of classes all over the world has called off the delivery of meaningful instruction conducted in a school setting. Graduation ceremonies, recognition programs were either postponed or canceled. Student assessments were compromised, and even the modality of teaching and learning has to be adjusted. Indeed, coronavirus 2 has created the largest disruption of education systems in more than 190 countries, with more than 1.6 billion children whose education was interrupted. And along the line of an urgent call, clamor to build a stronger and resilient education system, it was distinctly pronounced by UNESCO that education cannot wait. If it stops, we will lose human capital. That is because education is not just a fundamental right, a basic right, or a constitutional right, but it is largely described as an enabling right that directly impact the realization of other human rights. It has also been referred to as the primary driver of progress in the successful actualization of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, with quality education as the fourth SDG. I believe that we, as stakeholders of education, will never allow the collapse of education system. And so this is now the big question that most educators, parents have in mind: how to bridge educational gap. How are we going to recover education losses? How to get back the learning losses created by the pandemic? Ladies and gentlemen, closing the so-called educational vacuum for the long months that we have had lockdowns, especially for children with special educational needs, is both crucial and very important, because this group of children deserve similar opportunities to continue with their education, just like the students enrolled in the general school population. Students with disabilities, with impairments, with difficulties in learning should be given special attention for the continuity of learning, to align instruction, including learning objectives, assessment, and the way that they should be taught because of their unique learning needs. And in my experience as a public school teacher and later as a school principal, it is my observation that one of the most prevalent cases of disabilities enrolled in regular classes is learning disability. As per operational definition, it is a hidden or invisible disability. And if I may share a slice of my experiences that I had when I was still a classroom teacher. At that time, I was neophyte one and assigned to handle grade 4 class, English class for that matter. And I had this experience handling a pupil or learner with learning disability. I still vividly recall that I had a pupil whom we shall call him Rodrigo. At first glance, he is healthy, he seems healthy, has a well-built body, robust at that, and industrious. However, during that time, it was my problem, my predicament on how to align my teaching with regards to the condition that I have observed. Because as per the definition, we cannot identify one by merely looking at the child. Because when he talks, he has such a soft, small voice with enunciation problems. And when I read his written outputs, oh, I cannot read the penmanship because if I ask him to write letter B, his version of that letter looks like letter D. For him, letter P is letter Q. So I cannot really decipher on how to align my teaching according to his unique learning needs. And of course, that was 25 years ago when I have not yet attended special education training. Truthfully, the various training, conventions, conferences that I have participated in made me aware. And of course, the genuine love for special children, I came to understand their situation, that there is indeed the need to align instruction with their unique learning condition. It was then I realized that the case of Rodrigo was that of dyslexia, which is a difficulty in coping with the literacy and numeracy aspects of the learning process. There are also other three types of learning disability, like dyscalculia, difficulty in understanding number concepts. Dysgraphia is about problem on expressing thoughts or ideas in writing and, of course, in dealing with graphs. And finally, dyspraxia, wherein this is an impairment or immaturity of the organization of movement. Children with dyspraxia have problems on both gross and fine motor skills relating to balance and coordination, as well as in the manipulation of objects. In the Philippines, ladies and gentlemen, learners with or students with learning disabilities are usually mainstreamed in the regular or inclusive classes. They receive special instruction through a pull-out intervention program managed under a trained special education teacher. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, what I would like to drive at this very moment is that even though these children have disabilities, impairments, have learning difficulties, they are first and foremost human beings. And a human being has a heart that feels, a heart that can express powerful emotions of love, happiness, sadness, worry, anxiety. Because these children are like anybody else. They have their own feelings, they are fully aware of what is happening around them. So that when community quarantines and long months of lockdowns with the restrictions were implemented due to the coronavirus too, just like we adults, they also felt and suffer the traumatic impact of the pandemic. Because they are children, they are vulnerable. They belong to the susceptible group, to the emotional and psychological consequences that their day-to-day life. And so it is very important then, dear parents, educators, that in this pandemic time, we have to safeguard their emotional well-being. As parents, we have to provide them support from this emotional turmoil that may lead to boredom, stress, anxiety, anger, and that we should find some ways, interventions in order to support their emotional well-being. And here are some ways as provided for by Child Trends. First, understand that reactions to the pandemic and other crises may vary among children. Parents should be on guard, should be always looking into the day-to-day behaviors of their children. It is important that parents should not compare the reaction of other children as to the effects of the pandemic because they have individual differences. Second is to ensure the presence of a sensitive and responsive caregiver. And I truly believe that there is no other better or best, for that matter, support system than you, dear parents. There can be no other person who can rightfully and warmly express the unconditional love and support other than you, parents. For the third intervention is social distancing is different from social isolation. Definitely, they differ. Your children can still have open communication to stay connected with their friends, with their relatives, playmates, classmates, even without gathering in one place for the traditional face-to-face interaction. They can use every available resources, gadgets to stay connected through phone calls, exchange of SMS messaging, text, emails, video calls, and a wide array of social media platforms. Moving on to the fourth, we should also be able to increase children's efficacy. And again, I would like to zero in on the importance of open communication. Talk to your child. Be able to know how he feels, how he reacts to the effects of the pandemic. And from there, you can build his or her confidence, increase their motivation, also be very generous of praises, good feedback, as well as the provision of positive reinforcements, both verbal and material. And at this point, I will also emphasize the power of hug. Because if you hug your children regularly, you send a strong message that they are loved, secured, protected under your loving arms. And that when you hug your children, they mean or you mean everything will be all right. Fifth one is during the pandemic, you should keep children busy with various activities. You should discover your children's other interests. What are they good at? And be able to divert their boredom and the constant use of gadgets through productive endeavors. Why not make them your assistants in cooking, baking, planting, doing the laundry, and many other household chores? And moving on to the sixth, as parents, as educators, you should be able to create a safe physical and emotional environment by practicing 3 R's. And what are the 3 R's? First, reassurance. By talking to your children, you should be able to send the message that everything will be okay. That this pandemic, no matter how difficult it is to live with it, you will still be one family who will support, love each other, and that together you will be able to survive the pandemic. And look forward to the day that you can reclaim your old life, your normal day-to-day activity. Second R is routine. This is very important for learners with disabilities. Daily activities should be reinvented because according to experts, creating new routines or reestablishing their normal routines can help children feel safe. You may introduce new schedule timelines, but it is advised that you maintain regular meal times, bedtime, and the sort of proper time management during the pandemic. You have time to eat together, time to play games together, time to sing songs, to pray, and other productive activities during the pandemic. And lastly, we have regulation. Everything should be undertaken in moderation. Sleep, good food, gadget use, exposure to the online world, as well as news or information feeds should all be controlled or regulated in order to strike a balance of life's activities during the pandemic. It is also very beneficial that you limit your family's exposure to news items surrounding the pandemic and be on guard, beware of news sources that promote fear and panic. And so, friends, the support that we can extend to our children in the midst of the pandemic is essential in the successful transition as they move to the reopening of schools. This is a way to give them the right mindset and emotional stability for the resumption of teaching and learning activities as we all embrace the new normal education. As response of the Philippines to the basic education challenges brought by COVID-19, the Department of Education has issued DepEd Order number 12 series of 2020, which is our guide. This is a comprehensive document that serves as roadmap of continuing the aborted education. It is a package of education interventions as well as what we call framework, overall framework that will respond to the basic education, the continuity of learning of our students. And this new normal education, we have what we call BELCP, or Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan. And among the salient features are the use of MELCs, or the most essential learning competencies. The Department of Education has collaborated with the Assessment Curriculum and Technology Research Center for the streamlining of the K-12 basic education curriculum, specifically to be utilized in this pandemic school year. Our education leaders, as well as the curriculum planners, in identifying the important competencies, have employed a vital or important descriptor called endurance. Accordingly, a learning competency is enduring if it remains with the learner long after taking a test or after the completion of a study. And in the identification of the most important learning competencies, they have involved the following processes like retention, merging or clustering, removal or dropping, and finally, rephrasing. Friends, the continuity of learning likewise specifies the adoption of multiple learning modalities like face-to-face. However, we have not been doing this type of modality because we have a standing order from our dear President, His Excellency Rodrigo Roa Duterte, that unless a vaccine is available, then we cannot compromise the health and the life of our learners and our teachers. We also have the distance learning, where learning involves when the teacher and the learners or students are geographically apart or remote from each other. And there are three kinds of distance learning provided. We have number one is MDL, which involves individualized instruction through the use of modules in both print and digital format. Next is the ODL, where it features the teacher as facilitator of learning engaging active participation from the learners through the use of various technologies, access through the internet, while the teacher and the learners are geographically distant from each other. And finally, we have the TV or radio-based instruction. These are the modules, worksheets that are converted to videos and radio scripts for the purpose of having television or radio-based instruction. Aside from the distance learning, we also have blended learning, which is a combination of face-to-face with any or mix of the available distance learning modalities. And number four is the homeschooling, which is the provision of basic education facilitated in by parents or qualified tutors who should be or who should have undergone relevant training in a home-based learning environment. Another salient feature is the integration of mental health and psychosocial support services that aims to protect and promote psychosocial well-being and mental health of students. There are four modules in which it also means to help them cope up with the stresses, the pressures, the anxieties brought by the COVID-19 as we transition to the reopening of schools. And 2 weeks before the opening of classes, we have rolled out the four modules to our students. And ladies and gentlemen, one of the most important features of the basic education learning continuity plan is the mandate on the provision of adaptations for learners with disabilities, such as the provision of closed captioning of instructional videos, as well as sign language interpretation to be utilized by students with hearing impairment. We also have for learners with visual impairment, the transcribing of print materials to Braille, and the provision of different format options, like the use of self-learning modules, worksheets, availability of digitized lessons, TV clips, video clips, and other useful online materials designed to be available or accessible to all types of learners. Of course, special mention to the students with disabilities, the students with learning disabilities. The Department of Education, through the curriculum and instruction division, has undertaken the development of learning resources like modules and worksheets. We also have instructional videos and the TV and radio-based or radio broadcast learning materials. For learners with disabilities, we use the regular streamlined K-12 basic education curriculum, since these students with learning disabilities are mainstreamed or included in the regular or inclusive classes. And in our own division, Schools Division of Pangasinan 2, none other than our education program supervisor, Dr. Martes Tabuga, has spearheaded the initiative of writing, constructing, and developing locally made modules and worksheets which are appropriately contextualized by a pool of writers that she has organized, composed of the very able special education teachers who were grouped according to their line of expertise. The outputs of our teacher learners, or I mean teacher writers, were then subjected to thorough and comprehensive checking and review as to the content, pedagogy, assessment. It is also very important that we have to align the activities involved with the most essential learning competencies. And of course, we have the grammar and correctness through a series of validation sessions led by our supervisor, with yours truly as part of the committee. Necessary corrections were made and interpreted, and the final validation and approval was done by the Office of the Learning Resource Management and Development System. And after which, we were given the green light for the reproduction of self-learning modules and learning activity sheets. And of course, our industrious teachers assisted us, including sorting, labeling, and packing of these learning materials. Their devotion and passion for special education and in coming up with these resources is indeed inspiring and commendable. In this journey of reopening the education to the learners, we actually manifested one of the most endearing traditions of the Filipinos, which is called the Bayanihan spirit. Moving on, the distribution of modules and worksheets were done either on site at the school gymnasium and done remotely, where we coordinated with the village or barangay officials. We set up drop off points and issued or gave the learning materials to the parents, to the learners in their respective residences. And since there's no face-to-face instruction, it is imperative that teaching and learning should be done at home. And so we designated our dear parents, caregivers, and guardians to be the learning facilitators. And in order to prepare them for that task, we conducted a school-based parent orientation, including simulation activities, which is a sort of capacitating them to on how to teach their children, on how to facilitate a meaningful teaching learning process, and on how to go about the step-by-step process in answering the activities included in the module. The accomplishment of the modules were regularly monitored by our teachers through online engagement. And apart from that, our teachers extend assistance to parents on matters relating to behavioral management so that in the event that these children or their children exhibit or manifest some behavioral problems, display tantrums, they know what to do. They can respond accordingly and be able to apply the behavioral modification technique. So we capacitated our parents on how to modify the behavior of their children. And ladies and gentlemen, in light of the present health crisis and in anticipation of similar disruptions in the future, it is beneficial, it is important that governments should invest, should upgrade the digital infrastructure in order to break the so-called digital divide between those who have access and those who do not. This is to spread the infinite possibility of virtual learning. In the near future, it is also important to modify the learning environment. Once face-to-face instruction is allowed, such as marking of school grounds as guide to physical distancing measures, as well as setting up of triage to or as a standard operating procedure before entering the school premises. We have also to wear masks, face shield, and of course the social or observance of physical or social distancing. Likewise, classrooms should also be designed adopting new educational spaces for safe face-to-face teaching and learning activities, just like the retrofitting of large classrooms made possible by the Brains Training and Review Center in Quezon City, Philippines. This is a sample of their large rooms. They set up a barrier between the learners and the facilitators of learning. Likewise, there is a need also to modify smaller classrooms. It can be equipped with widescreen monitors while the teacher facilitates learning from the so-called on-site studio. These things manifest density, distance, and hygiene as essential concepts of a new normal classroom. Further, there's also a need to establish, maintain, and sustain, upgrade a repository of digitized learning resources for easy access, whether online or offline. And so, in our humble learning institution, we employ 3 C's to effectively respond to the challenge of continuing the education of our learners. That there should be communication, cooperation, and collaboration that is very much necessary to create meaningful learning experiences for the students, especially the learners with disabilities in the midst and post worldwide COVID-19 pandemic. Indeed, there is no stopping our collective yearning to educate, to continue education. This is what our dear President, His Excellency Rodrigo Roa Duterte, who articulated during his State of the Nation address that COVID-19 can't get in education's way. Life that is lost forever. Education that is delayed can be recovered. And before I finally end, may I take this opportunity to express my sincerest gratitude and much appreciation to Simusen for giving me this wonderful, amazing platform to be part of this international webinar. With that, I would like to say, terima kasih, maraming salamat po. Thank you very much for listening. Once again, this is Jupiter Lopez Petilia, Principal 4 of Bangaldan Integrated School SPED Center, Philippines. Mabuhay.
Thank you, Dr. Jupiter, for the wonderful sharing just now. Yes, indeed, education could not be stopped. Otherwise, we will be losing a huge potential of human capital in future to come. And I believe these are the exact worry that has been expressed by most of the teachers and parents. As shared by Dr. Jupiter, if I may recap a bit, understanding and managing the children's emotional health is paramount at times like this, more than ever in order to progress the education. Approach taken must ensure that understanding and emotion concern for the children should be the forefront item in designing any strategies to close the gap in education. Moving on to our second speaker, allow me to share Mr. Wong's biography. Mr. Wong Yun Loon is currently a manager at the Center for Advocacy Research and Empowerment for the Blind, National Council for the Blind, Malaysia. Mr. Wong holds a degree in social science and a master's degree in education from the University of Malaya, Malaysia. Prior to his current post, Mr. Wong also held the post of Vice President of the Malaysian Confederation of Disabled and Chief Facilitator for the Teruko Ikeda ICT training for youth with visual impairment from the Asia Pacific countries, Malaysia. Mr. Wong is also the member of several advisory committees such as Human Resource Development Fund, Certified Trainer, World Council member, Disabled People International, and member of the Executive for Disabled People International Asia Pacific. Mr. Wong Yun Loong was awarded Takeo Iwahashi Award in 2013 by Nippon Lighthouse in recognition of the distinguished services for the blind and visual impairment in the Asia Pacific region. May I now invite Mr. Wong to deliver his speech. Mr. Wong, the floor is yours.
Datin, Professor, Doctor, and fellow teachers, administrators, parents, and all the audience. A great day to all of you because we are from different time zones, so I don't know whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening. So great day to all of you. And first of all, thank you to Senior Sen for giving me this opportunity to make my presentation, and I hope all of you will bear with me for the next 30 minutes or so. And let's share and learn together what we can do for our students, our learners with special needs. In a few days' time, it will be 3rd of December, which all of you might already know that every 3rd of December is the International Day, for persons with disabilities by the United Nations. And the theme for this year is building back better towards and towards inclusive, accessible, and sustainable post COVID-19. So the keyword here is building back better. So my presentation today will try to remind all of you, or remind all of us, including me, that we have a responsibility to make the world a better place. As we all know, even before COVID-19, education for learners with special needs is not in its desirable stage. There are many gaps. We all know that. And countries are trying their best to close the gaps or rectify the situation. Now, it is being made worse with COVID-19, because COVID-19, many families lost their loved ones. Many families lost their income because they lost their job. And many children lost the opportunity for education because of lockdown, because of social distancing, and many other challenges. So we go to the third slide. So my presentation today will outline a broad approaches to close the education gap for learners with special needs, to just remind us that what needs to be done from the level of the policy makers, administrators, educators, and parents. So I use the concept of 10P. So we will have policy, plan, preparation, program, practice, promotion, partnership, and participation, performance. Oh, I missed one, purpose. Okay, next slide. Now we talk about policy. All ASEAN countries have ratified the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, CRPD, which outline general approach in providing education for learners with disabilities in Article 24. Okay, that's in Article 24. The next one is under the Incheon Strategy Goal 5, making the right rail for persons with disabilities, also emphasizes expand early intervention and education for children with disabilities. And as rightly mentioned just now by the first speaker, Sustainable Development Goal, Goal 4, also talks about provision of quality education. And next slide. Lastly, the ASEAN Enabling Master Plan 2025, mainstreaming rights of persons with disabilities, also advocate for local laws relating to persons with disabilities to be harmonized with CRPD and the master plan. So in brief, all these international conventions with our countries have already rectified and committed to. It calls for provision of free, compulsory, quality education for learners with disabilities, at least at the primary and secondary level. So it is already there. It's there. And it also says that we have to make education accessible. And we have, wherever there is a challenge, we need to have reasonable accommodation. So this is actually an opportunity. COVID have given us an opportunity. If we have not done all this, let's start from now. Building back better. So let's remember the keyword, building back better, 3P, 3Bs, sorry. So in Malaysia, our Malaysia Disability Act also provide for access to education for persons with special needs in Article 28. So in Malaysia, we have made provision. Okay, so next, all states shall recognize that education is a basic human right for all citizens, including learners with special needs. So this is important. We have to recognize that it is a right. It is not charity. We have to provide education to all our citizens, including learners with special needs. And in Malaysia, we are happy because it has already been in our Education Act since 1960. It's already provided for that special education have to be provided by the government, and the government is providing. And we have the latest is our Special Education Regulation 2013. This is very significant because in the past it says that the school system will only take in children who are educable. Who decide who is educable or not educable? So we, civil society, organization for persons with disabilities, and also families, parents, and teachers, we advocated to the government that this should be removed because it is not fair, because it's difficult to determine what you mean by educable and not educable. So in our Special Education Regulation 2013, we have already we took off that clause. So everybody can go to school. And in 2019, our government have a zero reject policy, which means that if a special needs child come to the school, you cannot reject. You must admit them. If you don't have the expertise, you don't have the facilities, then you should make an effort to look for it, or you should try to have a reasonable accommodation. Okay, so next slide. We have to be clear. What is the purpose of education? What is the purpose? Is it just a daycare center where the parents can just send their children while they busy themselves with work and other activities? No, it's not. So we have to also understand that not all children with special needs can achieve academic excellence. Of course, there are some who can. For those who can, yes, we support them, we motivate them, we give them encouragement, we encourage them, but not all. So if they can't get academic excellence, we should think of other ways. So vocational skills for employment. I like to believe, I don't know about all of you, but I like to believe that one of the main purpose of education is towards employment. We have to create a situation where our learners with special needs can move on and can work and can support themselves. They cannot be with their families forever. You know, they cannot live with their parents forever. One day, God will call us home, and who will take care of them? So the right thing to do is we have to we have to allow them to learn a skill so that they can get employment. Or they can get at least functional literacy for daily living skills. At least they can manage themselves. They don't have to depend on people. You know, they can manage their money. They know how much they spend for food. They know how much they should pay for transportation. Nobody can cheat them. But from my experience, when it comes to money, nobody can cheat them. They always understand how to spend their money. So we have to be very clear. What is the purpose? So if your child cannot excel in academic, do not despair. Do not get disappointed. Do not march to the school and to the headmaster's room and demand. You know, there should be other streams. So in Malaysia, we have two streams. You can go the academic stream, and also you can go to the vocational stream. And the government has set up 5 vocational schools, especially for. On top of that, there are some schools that also provide vocational skills. So skills like tailoring, catering, cooking. For persons who are blind or visually impaired, they have reflexology. You know, there. I went to a school the other day that have also give facial, facial treatment. So these are skills that they can learn and they can get some. They can work. Okay, next slide. We have to have a clear plan for the provision of special education. So in Malaysia, when the government formulated the National Education Plan 2013 to 2025, it also includes special education, and there it specifically mentioned that the way to go is inclusion, and by 2025, um, we will have 75% of our learners in inclusive setting. But people will ask, why 75%? Why not 100%? We have to be realistic. That some need some kind of additional support or special support. So we cannot just put everybody in inclusive education. Okay, next slide. Preparation. So preparation, I'm sure all of you are very familiar. You know, teachers need to be trained. Mainstream curriculum needs to be adapted to the needs of special needs. We should also cater for special curriculum if needed. If they can't go for the mainstream, they can go for the special curriculum. We have to have adaptive equipment and teaching materials. For example, we should have books that are in Braille. We should have teachers who are trained in sign language for the deaf. We should also have what do you call it, adaptive equipment, like for example, Braille display, computers, etc., etc. Braille display is, I don't know whether you can see, but it is like what that I'm using now. And also assessment method. Yes, assessment is not, we cannot just go for just exam. That is not the one and only assessment method, because there are many assessment method. And I like what is being practiced in Malaysia. That is besides the academic exams that they have to go through, which has a fail or pass, but the vocational stream, their assessment is based on competent or not yet competent. That is very good, because it's not demoralizing. I didn't fail, but I'm not yet competent. That's all. For example, if today I ask our colleagues from CBUSN to handle the slides for me. So it doesn't mean that I fail if you have a exam on using this kind of distance learning or whatever. But it means that I'm not yet competent, and I still haven't mastered the skill of handling the slides by myself. So that is what we mean. Competent or not yet completed. And of course, infrastructure, we need to make our school accessible so that our learners with special needs can move around the school comfortably. Next slide, we go to program. So this is familiar to all of you, whether we have a special school setting, integrated program, or inclusive education. So special school setting is where all the students with special needs, maybe a school for the blind or a school for the deaf or something like that. We will keep some of these schools. We will not build new schools. We'll keep some of these schools because it can be, firstly, it can be for those people who cannot adapt to the mainstream. And secondly, it can act as a training ground for teachers who wants to know more about special education. Integrated program, you know, there's a special class in the school where the students, in the mainstream school where the students learn, and inclusive education is where they study side by side their not their, what do you call it, the regular students in the regular school. I wouldn't say normal or regular school. Next slide is practice. So education officers, school administrators, regular teachers, special education teachers should be all equipped with the relevant skills and knowledge to support learners with special needs. Whenever necessary, modification to curriculum, adaptive devices, accessible school environment should be provided. So this is important, very important, especially in promoting inclusive setting. Next slide is one of the way that we can use is universal design in learning. We are familiar with universal 7 principles of universal design for built environment, but there is also now universal design in learning, which is engagement. Engagement means encourages teachers to look for multiple ways to motivate students, letting kids make choices and giving them assignments that feel relevant to their lives. Some examples of how teachers can sustain students' interest. So, for example, when I was in school, the teachers, some teachers, not all, some teachers use their finger or pointer and just say, this plus this equals to this. So I don't know what is this plus this equal to this. So the very simple way that most teachers can do, it doesn't, it is same one syllable, 8 plus 2 equals to 10. So it is this, 8 to 10. Same syllable. It doesn't need much more effort, but it is meaningful. Meaningful for students like me, because we can understand what is going on. And a lot of, in a working environment, a lot of team building exercises, they allow people to move around, play games in the classroom. So we must not be very rigid, or you must sit down at your place. If you try to fidget or move around, the teacher will come around and say, sit down, or if you refuse to listen, then they punish you or something like that. So we have to make some kind of change where we can try to get the students in a more conducive environment. The second principle is representation, representation means we can give information in multiple ways. Like, for example, we can provide information for, let's say, if you play a video in the classroom, for a blind student, they don't know what is in the video. So you have to have audio description and narration. This is just a suggestion to our friends in Simosen. Just now, your very nice video, it doesn't have any narration. So now you should try to make it, put some narration into the video. I know it's very nice because my colleague here is explaining to me what is happening, but if there's nobody it is just music to me, and I don't know what is on the screen. So so we can present the whatever information in different ways. Like for example, if you use Microsoft Word, you can make the font larger, you can change color, you can change contrast. So this is what we mean by presenting the information in many ways. And the third principle is action as expression, so that we give kids multiple ways to interact with the material, and also we also allow them to be assessed by using different methods. Not only you have to write down your answers for in the exam, you can always use somebody to write for you. You can maybe answer in orally, or maybe you can now we are all moving towards not 100% exam. So group assignments, group work, all these things can be taken into as an assessment for what you're doing. More so now in post COVID-19, we need to be able to assess in multiple ways. Okay, next is a promotion. We have to promote the capabilities and the capabilities of our student learners with special needs. We need to let the public know that they are capable. They are not going to just be disruptive in the class. They can. If we teach them, they can. And most important, I always emphasize this: acceptance of the peers and teachers. The other 30 or 20 other students must accept me to be in the class. They cannot just take it as we have 29 students plus one. We have 30 students in our class, not 29 students plus one with special needs. We have 30 students. So we have to accept them. Accept, because this is children needs to be taught from the very beginning, because if children can accept person with disabilities at the school level, we solve a lot of problems. We will have an inclusive society, because when they grow up, they will not forget what they learned in school. Whatever happens to us when when we grow up and when we old, we always remember all the nice, good old days when we were in school. So next is participation. So parents shouldn't hand over responsibility to the school or to the teacher 100%. Parents should participate in educating their child. For example, parents of blind children should also learn Braille so that they can teach them at home. Parents of students with hearing loss should also learn sign language. Parents of students with learning difficulties, they should also join some therapy session and learn some ideas how to interact with their children. And the next is a partnership. So you can actually have partnership. I'm not saying that it's a burden. It's a very heavy burden on the teacher, or the regular school teacher, to be able to understand how to handle students with diverse needs, blind, deaf, learning disability, and all that. But you can actually make use of organization or person with disabilities, or some kind of therapy center which is in your town or city. Make use of them, build partnership with them, get them to assist you, and get them to give you some tricks or tips on how to handle the situation. Of course, performance I already mentioned partly just now, that we should assess them on a variety of methods, and we shouldn't label them as pass or fail, probably competent or not yet competent, and etc. So, okay, I know time is coming up, but I just mentioned briefly what happens in Malaysia during COVID-19. During the lockdown, a lot of parents, especially parents who have students with learning learning difficulties. The children is restless because that routine, they cannot go to school, so they are restless. But due to after some kind of advocacy and some kind of discussion, the government has very kindly allowed them to go out with their parents, to get some fresh air and just to, um, at least they are not cooked out in the houses and all that. And later on, the parents also allow the government also allows some therapy centers to open so that the children can go to, can get some therapy. When the school reopened, they have set up special standard operating procedures for students with special needs, so they are not excluded from school. I like to touch on home-based learning. Home-based learning, yes, it's good, but not all families have devices, have enough devices to share around, and not all families have devices with accessible features, and not all families have good internet connection. So this is something that we have to think about. How do we do home-based learning? One of the things that happened long ago, which we can bring back, is using radio and television. We can have programs air on television, or we can make videos where the students can share and can access whenever they feel comfortable. Because home-based learning, 10:25, you have to be there. The teacher will open the room or something like that. But if you do it by video, they can access it whenever they are convenient. So this is some of the challenges that we all face. But do not despair. I think it is good. We can build back better. We have a lot of challenges, but let us use this challenge to build back better. And hopefully we can be more resilient, we can be more prepared to face future pandemics. We don't know what will happen in the future. So take this opportunity, build back better, have good policies, have good plans, good preparation, have good practices in the school, good partnerships, a good way of performance evaluation, and I'm sure the future will be brighter and will be better. So before I end, I once again like to thank Senior Sen for giving me this opportunity to share, and I hope you can get something out of my sharing and try to build back better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wong, for your insights and inputs just now. Allow me to echo the message shared by Mr. Wong just now. All available hands must be put on deck in order to close this educational gap for our children. All relevant parties from ministries level, administrators, educators, and even parents and communities have an important role to play should we are keen to bridging the gap in the education right now. And thank you, Mr. Wong. This outlining the crucial 10 Ps is very much gave us a valuable insights on how to move and take action on the issues that we have been in our hand at the moment when it comes to education for persons with disabilities. Thank you again. We have now come to our final speaker for this webinar. Before moving on to the questions and answer sessions, allow me to introduce our final speaker, Dr. Samad Ratana Sakon. Dr. Samad Ratana Sakon currently holds the post of Head of Curriculum and Instruction in Special Education Bureau at the Ministry of Education, Thailand. Dr. Samad holds 2 master degrees, which the first master degree in Physical Education from Sri Nagarin University, Bangkok, and master degree in Rehab Service for persons with disability from Ratchasudha College, Mahidol University. Also, Dr. Samad holds a doctoral degree in curriculum and instruction from Chulalongkorn University, Bangkok, Thailand. In addition, Samad has also from several foreign institutions such as Perkins School for the Blind, United States of America, Autism Resource Center, Singapore, and Japan International Cooperation Agency, Japan. It is my great honor to invite Dr. Samad Ratnasakon to share on how the learning situation and responses as well as the effort taken to address education disruption during this crucial time. Dr. Samad, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Monisha. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. And I hope you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for inviting me to be a speaker today. I'm very honored to be to have the same forum with Dr. Jupiter and Yulung. It's my pleasure. And would you please go to my slide, please? Okay. Today I'm going to share about the closing the educational gap for persons with disability in Thai perspective. So when we going to improve our education in our region, I think we need to understand and we need to identify our gap for educational gap in our region. So please, next slide, please. So my outline today, I'm going to cover 3 things. The first thing is about the global educational gap, and the second thing is educational disparities of children with disability in Thailand, and my recommendation. Next, please. So, if you look at the SDG goal number 4, I think our speaker already talking about the SDG goal already, especially on the goal 4. I just to point out the goal number 4, they call for the inclusive and quality education for all. A person with disability are among the population groups most likely to suffer from exclusion from education. But the data that permit on the analysis of the links between disability and education remains scarce. So I think if we want to improve our education to meet the goal number 4, we need to make sure to look at the gap. So next slide, please. You see the global educational gap. The result of the analysis confirmed that the person with disability was than a person without disability on average. You see the number 18.7 million children with children out of school children that studied by the UNESCO. Among that, you see the person with disability is one of those. So the result of the analysis that confirm the person with disability are nearly always worse off than person without disability on average. You see the less likely to attend the school, more likely to be out of school, and they are less likely to complete primary or secondary education, and they have fewer years of schooling, and they likely less they are less likely to process basic literacy skill. You see, on the average, it's about the 87% of person with our disabilities attend the school. If we compare with the person with disability, only 77%. So if we want to plan our education for the future, so we need to think about this information. So this is the basic information that we need to use and make our strategy to more effective. So please go to the next slide, please. So if you look at, I want to share our experience on the education disparities of children with disability in Thailand. We compare number of students with and without disability enrolled in the different education level. You see the table. I just want to point out that in the primary school and the lower secondary school, you will see the different gap. You will see the student without disability. There are 5 million in the primary school, and then continue to the lower secondary school, is about 3 million students on. And if we compare with the have 300,000 students with disability in the primary school, and only 85,000 students that can continue to the lower secondary school. And if you see that they can go on to the high school, they have only almost 4,000. They can go to higher education, and 1,400 they can go to the vocational education. What happened? So we need to find out what is the gap, what is the barrier that prevent our students with disability that drop out from the school. So we need, I think it is very, very important, government in our region, that we need to do something to find out, to identify the reason behind the student dropout. Please go to the next slide, please. So you see, this is just the graph to see the number, to see the percentage from the year 2017 to 19. You see the percentage that the student that out of school student in an inclusive setting. You see you see on the in primary education, you see on 2017 we have 67.4, and 2018 66.6, 3.4 in 2019. And for the secondary education, the percentage that the student drop out is in 2017 and 92, and 9.1 and 92.4 on the 2018, and 2000.3 on the 2019. You see the number. This continue. The number is continue. The same thing. The same number. The same percentage that students still out of school every year. So go to the next slide, please. So I done a lot of the research to find out the reason why, or what are the barriers that prevent our students enter to the education system and drop out during the already got in the educational system. So I found that I think everybody know that. If you see the picture, you see the white face is children with special education needs, and the blue one is the typical student. Enter to the education system, but at the beginning we have the barrier that prevent them, prevent some students with special needs to enter into the like attitude, knowledge, and the most important thing that I think that low expectation. If we have the low expectation for the children with disability, not going to provide or quality education for with disability. And the other thing is policy implementation. Like Thailand, we have the good policy on provide a better quality education for students with special needs, and for all. We have a good educational law. So another thing that the barrier that we found from my research is that I found that the financial support to the inclusive education. So like Thailand, the student with special education need just got the same support. I mean, they got the same amount of money per year for each student, like student without a disability. So it's not enough for the student to provide a educational service to special needs students. And the other thing that we found that physical barrier, student cannot go to the classroom and cannot go in the classroom. We have, so the transportation is the other thing that prevent them to come to school. And Mr. Yun Lung talking about the curriculum that well designed for our students with special needs. Curriculum and instruction is not well designed, and the lack of assistive technology that support our students in the inclusive setting. So you see the lots of students drop out from the education. So I'm not going to talk in the low part of this slide. Please go. So you see the gap, the educational gap already in the typical situation. But now we have the COVID-19 pandemic in exposing the gap in Thailand education. So it's put more gap, it's widening gap in Thailand. I think it's all over the world. So the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, disruption to the Thailand education system, like some 15 million Thai students, including students with disability, is more than 400,000 be out of school until the 1st of July 2020. You see, we try to did the survey. We did the survey on the readiness on distance learning of the special needs students. So during the COVID, we try to provide them for the all students throughout the country, provide them the distance learning for everybody. So we make many modules and many model for the providing education for all. So when in the survey we found that in the special school, we only 33.3 that ready for the distance learning, and for the inclusive setting only 19.6 ready for the distance learning. And for the special education center, we found that only 24.6 they're ready for the distance learning. So average is 74.12% of the students lack of equipment, media, and technology suitable for each type of disability. So my question is, does the COVID-19 pandemic worsening and the opportunity gap widening in your country? So they make more gap in your country or not? So I think the COVID-19 it make us more crystal clearing about the gap of educational gap of the student of the learner with disability, so we can see and clear the gap. So please go to next slide, please. So without the preparing, like other our speaker said, that if we do not prepare for such a situation, so the gap much more bigger. So I think this is a crucial time to prevent the educational gap from the widening, and to stop too many children and young people with disability being left behind. So closing the gap, I asking to closing the gap, preparing teachers, educators, parents of children with special needs relating to the continuing education post-pandemic. So at the CMO members, CMO send member countries, we need to initiate collaboration projects to prepare for this holistic moment and ensure education truly for all through the leadership, innovation, and teacher training. So next slide, please. So example of the COVID call on the teacher to develop further knowledge and skill. You see the picture. The teacher need to know about the e-learning accessibility. I'm sorry. The teacher need to know about the e-learning accessibility. So before that, teacher is okay, you know or you don't know. But now after COVID-19, it's crystal clear that the gap. So the gap of educational gap. So we need to, the teacher need to understand and to know how e-learning accessibility. So also the teacher need to make a learning platform accessible. And what the teacher need to do for accessible e-learning content, that's the other thing that our teacher in our region need to understand and need to have the knowledge and skill. What are the teachers do to put this accessibility principle into practice? So I think that Mr. Yunlung said that we need to think about the universal design for learning. That the teacher need to understand our student learning style, and they need to create a educational platform for that's suitable for our student with special needs. So student learning style is the other thing that teacher need to understand, and to identify each student in their classroom, so they can provide differentiated instruction and different different pattern of the education. So how the teacher have the technology skill to help them to perform more effectively. This is the other skill that teacher in the post COVID-19 need to have these skills and knowledge to provide better education for our students with special needs. So in Thailand, in 2018, So I think it is one of the we can give an example. Like we on the 2018 we work with the UNESCO and Microsoft. Yeah, but we create accessible hackathon. So to help the teacher, help our student to make a solution how to help our student learning effectively in our educational system. So maybe the other thing that we can share in the future. Next slide, please. So this is my recommendation. My recommendation is going to provide. We have four key strategies for better special needs education. Like Mr. Yulung said that we have to build back better, right? So I have four key strategies for build back our special education services. So the first thing that accessibility. So we need to think about the accessibility when we provide them the education, even though during the crisis or during the normal time. So how can we collaborate between key stakeholders to create accessible education? Who are the key stakeholders? I put on the left side of the slide. You see the educators, students, parents, school leader, DPO, university, district, provincial administrators, policy makers. They are the key stakeholders that need to work together to create accessible education. So when we need to think we need to think at the beginning of the universal design principle to create the educational for all students that can provide them everybody to access to the quality education. Second key strategy is capacity. What is our plan to address these gaps and provide holistic support within and beyond the classroom? How we provide the teacher to be able to deliver the learning activity content to the students more effectively, more engaged, more participate among the students, and use how to use the skill and the knowledge of using the technology in the classroom, or providing the e-learning or distance learning for students with special needs. So this is another thing that we need to focus on capacity building for our teacher in this region. For the learning opportunity, what is the instructional resource and support are we recommended funding and providing to ensure that educators are prepared to deliver high quality on and offline learning, and are these resources available for all students? Another question, are these resources available in our region, in our country, in our school? So we need to think about that when we provide learning opportunity for our students, because our students, now we have a diversity of students. Students have the different needs. So we cannot just stand up in the front of the class and talk to our students. So we need to find some ways of the learning opportunity to our students, not only in the classroom. beyond the classroom as well. So this is the other thing that we need to think about that. The learning outcome, what are the actions that the key stakeholder need to do to make sure that each students have the right to attend a high quality education that prepare them for succeed? They put us, let's say the other way, how to help every student success. So this is success in their education and later success in their life, adult life or post-school life. So we need to think about the learning outcome. So we need to work together as the simultaneous member countries. So this is all the 4 key strategy for better special needs education, or 4 key strategy for build back better for our region. Please go to the next slide, please. So I think I would like to bring you back to my previous my early slides, that I talked about the identify the closing the gap to change already. So if we use the 4 strategies, and we hope that if you see at the bottom of the slide, you see that we hope that the barrier free, every student with and without a disability, then they can enter to the educational system that through inclusive education or through inclusive society. So we have to have the law enforcement. We have to have high expectation. Not only the educators, the parents as well. They need to have the high expectation on their children with a disability. So the financial support need to have we need to think about the financial support that enough for improve our education, for improve our student education or not, or not knowledge and accessibility. The other thing that we need to think about that. I already talked about that on the previous slide. And innovation, accessible technology, well-designed curriculum, and disability support system that need to put in place in the inclusive setting. Not only just the push the number of the students with the special need in the inclusive education without any support. Is to suffer for student and the parent. If you go to see the school that do not have enough support to the student with disability in the inclusive setting, you will see how they suffer from that education service. Though the other thing is collaboration. We need to work together to improve our educational system that can provide and build back better for our educational system. So will be through inclusive education and inclusive society. Next slide, please. So when we're talking about the closing, not to reduce our society has to set high expectation for children with disability. So I did say that not educators, everybody in society, it's even though the student with disability need to have the high expectation on their own as well. So not only the closing the gap. So we need to raising the bar. We need to quality for our educational system for every student, not only for the student with special needs, not for the typical students, but for all. They need to have a high achievement. We need to raise the bar. We need to raising the bar, high quality, high expectation. So put this aim can only be achieved through clear goals, collaboration, honesty, solidarity, and investment. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. So this come to the end, but it's really just begun. Thank you very much for let me to present my presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Samad, for the wonderful sharing just now. And yes, I could not stress this any further that we should really focus in improving the data available for our children in order for us to strategize impactful approach to address our issue at the moment. If not, we are actually in midst of going in war without a proper direction. And if I may recall what has been shared by Dr. Samad just now, this situation has amplified the importance for teachers to further develop their knowledge and skills. And this world without borders, I believe it is much more easier than ever for teachers to search and look for valuable knowledge and materials out there to improve one person's ability and skills. And also, this is what we in Simulsen has been putting effort so far in helping and providing educational program and activities for educators' capacity building. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to an end of our first session. Before we continue to the questions and answer session, may I remind our listeners that you can now access our registration and evaluation form from the link provided on the screen. Please note that the link will only be available active up to 3:30 p.m. Malaysia time. E-certificates will be issued within 14 working days for those who successfully completed the evaluation. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on to the Q&A session, the webinar secretariat has collected and compiled questions from our listeners through YouTube chat box and Facebook comments. I will read out each question as well as the intended speaker's name, and please try to be concise and brief in answering. In mind of the time, speakers are given 1 minute to respond to each question. Questions 1 from Miss Edna Divina to Dr. Jupiter Lopez Patella. The question is, could you share with us what is the most pressing issues that the educators in Philippines are facing during this pandemic, and how this approach that you shared just now helped to choose the gap on the issue? Thank you. Dr. Jupiter?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, Ma'am Agnes Divina. In this pandemic time and in the context of reopening our schools to continue learning, there are actually many issues, challenges confronting the education stakeholders. And when we say education stakeholders, we mean our education officials, we have our teachers, parents, guardians, and everyone else who have stakes on education, just like the unstable or the intermittent internet connectivity, the access to the internet. We also face the availability of gadgets for the online distance learning. It is also a challenge on the principals as well as the teachers on the available the, the modules and activity sheets. Another concern is the capacity of parents to teach the, because I have said in my presentation that in this pandemic time we delegated the teaching and learning process to the parents who will serve as the learning facilitators. And I believe that there is no one single pressing issue that we can enumerate, that we can solve at this particular time, because these are problems that are interconnected with each other. And I believe that the Department of Education of the Philippines, led by our esteemed Secretary, Leonor Magdalena Briones, is doing her best together with our other education officials to respond to these challenges. And on our part, on the micro level, which is the school level, because I am representing our school, the Mangalda Integrated Schools Center, we are expanding our linkages for support that will be asked or requested from non-government organizations, government organizations, for generous stakeholders in terms of the learning resources needed. Aside from that, in terms of the parents who may not be able to have the capacity to take learning, the Department of Education has issued DepEd Order number, which we require learning support aids to be in partner with the parents, the of opportunity, thereby promoting a process to end a difficult time, because that is happening on the world. It's birth pain, similar to the birth of a newborn baby. Say, we're just here, we survive, make education as a term, because we have in our so-called resiliency characteristic of the Filipinos, that in whatever challenges, trials that we encounter, we will all survive, and we will all together rejoice if we'll be able to respond to this week as one and as one continue the learning in spite of. That's all, Ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Jupiter. Question number 2 is for Mr. Wong Yun Lung. We received from Mrs. Hannah Safia. The question is, we understand that everyone should join in together to address that we are having right now on education. But how we could properly integrate and fine-tune with each other so that the ideal outcome can be achieved. Seems that everyone has their own agenda and different focus, and more ideas only dies down on discussion level. Mr. Wong, please.
Okay, thank you for the question. In Malaysia, under the Ministry of Education, there is a special education technical committee chaired by the Secretary General, and all divisions of the Ministry of Education and members of organization for persons with disabilities and teacher training colleges or universities who are representative of some universities, they are represented in this committee. And this committee discusses all prevailing issues or emerging issues on relating to special education. I'm not saying that we can solve all the problems, but at least we do have an avenue or a mechanism where all issues can be discussed at the highest level. So this is quite an effective mechanism, I believe, where we can all discuss and come up with solutions. Of course, challenges will be there, disagreements will be there will be dissatisfaction, but I like to mention here, which I didn't mention just now in my presentation is, if we cannot close the gap, but at least we can build a bridge. At least we can bridge the gap. So if the gap is there, let us together build a bridge and bridge the gap. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. And our last question is to Dr. Samad Ratana Sakon, received from Mr. Chanarong. The question is, how can we be sure that e-learning platform will be an advantage for science students? How about other approach? Dr. Samad, please.
Yes. Okay. Sure. So, okay, you can hear me, right? So for the
Yes,
have
Dr.
the two questions here. Yeah, the first question is how we can be sure that e-learning platform would be advantage for students. So we need to, the first thing that when we I've been talking about how the teacher can be able to create an e-learning that accessible. So if when we try to create e-learning accessible for our students with special needs, so we need to think about the universal design. So when we decide that we need to work with the student with special needs as well. So they will understand. They will know that how to what is the e-learning platform is be advantage or not, or accessible for not. So I'm not saying that the only e-learning that suits good for advantage for the special education need. Some is not, but you teacher need to find out the learning style of our student, so we can provide differentiates method platform like long distance or using the home visiting for our students who cannot come to school. So we need to work together and create the approach that can help our students be able to continue their education, and they can in the crisis, or even though in the situation that we need to different strategies, different approach. So we need to find out the learning style of the student. Like a student with autism, you cannot just use the e-learning. Some students they can, but some not. So each student they have no two students alike. So we need to find out the student. The first thing that when we create the e-learning platform, we need to think about the universal design and get the disability person with disability including in designing. And about the other approach, we need to find out the learning style of our students and provide them different platform for better to meet our student needs. I hope this is answer the question. Thank you.
Dr. Samad, for the answers. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of our webinar, closing the educational gap for persons with disabilities. Our huge appreciation and gratitude to our distinguished speakers and Ministries of Education of SIMEO member countries on your endless support for SIMEOSEN. Not to forget to our dear participants who has been with us for almost 2 hours from this morning, showing your high enthusiasm in seeking knowledge for a better education of our learners with disabilities. My utmost respect to all of you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, as much as we enjoyed this webinar, as saying goes, All good things must come to an end. However, inshallah, this will not be the end for Simyosen webinar series. Please visit our website for more updates and do follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Good luck and best wishes for everyone. May success be with you always. I would like now to hand over the session to the MC. Thank you and Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Madam Monica, for moderating opening, plenary and Q&A sessions. We have come to the end of the webinar, Closing the Educational Gap for Persons with Disabilities. Yang berbahagia Datuk, Professor, Dr. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to inform that the registration and evaluation link has been activated. You are reminded to complete both registration and evaluation within 3 hours. The link will be available until 3:30 p.m. Malaysia time. E-certificate will be emailed to respective participant through your registered email address within 40 working days. For updates, you are welcome to like and follow our social media pages at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter through the link address on the screen. For those who just joined, the full webinar recording can be watched at Simyosen YouTube channel. If you have further inquiries, you may reach us at webinar@simyosen.org. On behalf of the webinar committee and Simyosen, I would like to again express our sincere thanks to everyone for tuning to our live webinar. Our highest appreciation to all speakers for your sharing and participation. Until we meet again in our next webinar, thank you and Assalamualaikum.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Dr. Samad.
Open our eyes to a bright